Welcome to our deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to a place that's a little creepy,
Mhm.
and a little unsettling.
Okay.
The jungles of Uttarakhand, India.
Oh, wow.
And we're going to explore a legend that has persisted for quite a while, the legend of the Headless Horseman of Garjiya.
Okay.
Now, this isn't just a ghost story. There's some history. There's some really interesting local beliefs.
Right.
And there's been some pretty chilling encounters that people have reported over the years. So our goal today is to really pull apart this legend.
Yeah.
Figure out, where it may have come from and why it still has such a grip on people's imaginations. Why does it stick with us?
I think what makes this legend so fascinating is the fact that it seems to be rooted in a real historical event
Okay.
and a specific person.
Okay.
We're talking about 1892, a British officer named Captain Alistair Vaughan stationed at the Garjiya outpost.
Mm.
And it looks like 3 of his actions really led to everything that came after.
Okay, so let's break down that first action. What did he do?
Well, it seems Vaughan did something that was, well, incredibly disrespectful. He shot a pregnant tigress, and not just anywhere, but right near the sacred Garjiya Temple.
So, I mean, that's going to cause some problems, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in many cultures, particularly in that region, there's such a deep respect for both nature and these sacred places.
Yeah.
To carelessly take a life, let alone the life of a pregnant animal, and so close to a holy site, I mean, it would have been seen as a major, major offense.
Right, shows a real lack of respect for the local beliefs and customs.
Exactly.
But he didn't stop there, did he?
No, he didn't.
What happened next?
He then proceeded to disrespect the temple priests, basically ignoring their warnings about the goddess Garjiya Devi and her potential wrath.
I'm sensing a theme here of just not really caring about what the local people thought or believed.
Yeah, it really paints a picture of someone who is just dismissive of local authority and spiritual beliefs, almost like he was inviting some kind of consequence.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that brings us to the third and maybe the most crucial action that kind of sets this whole legend in motion.
Right.
This ill-fated solo ride that he took while intoxicated. And he was bragging about his hunting skills, saying that he was going to go out and hunt even more animals.
Yeah, and this is where the story takes a really dark turn.
What happened?
Well, the next morning, his horse was found in a terrible state,
What?
covered in blood,
Ugh.
clearly terrified.
Oh.
And Vaughn himself was found not far away, but, well, all they found was his headless torso still gripping his rifle. A pretty horrific discovery.
I can only imagine. So what about his head?
This is where it gets even more, well, unsettling. Days later, they found his head, perfectly preserved in the jaws of a massive tiger.
Oh, wow.
And to make things even more eerie, they confirmed it was him because of his gold tooth. They found it embedded in the tiger's fangs.
So it was definitely him, but it seems like more than just a tiger attack,
Right.
especially when you consider the reaction of the temple priests. They refused to give him last rites. They believed his soul would be claimed by the river. It's like they saw this coming.
Absolutely. Their refusal to perform the last rites really speaks volumes about how they interpreted his actions and what they believed the spiritual consequences would be. It sets this feeling of unease, of a kind of spiritual imbalance surrounding his death.
Yeah, there's definitely this sense that something isn't right, that things are out of balance. But it seems their prediction about the river wasn't exactly accurate.
How so?
Well, because what came next were decades of reported sightings, starting in 1927, that point to something a lot more spectral than just a soul lost in the river.
Right. So this is where the legend really takes on its ghostly form.
Exactly. And that first account from 1927 from a woodcutter, it's incredibly vivid. He describes this headless figure in a red cavalry coat, a clear connection to Vaughan's British military past, galloping through the mist. And the detail that really sends shivers down my spine, he's carrying his severed head, almost like a lantern, and the eyes seem to blink. The lips move like he's trying to say something. It's that classic ghost imagery, but with this very specific local twist.
It's so vivid, it's like something straight out of a nightmare.
It really is. And then fast forward to 1938, we have a monsoon flood, which just adds this whole other layer of strangeness. Villagers taking shelter in the temple, they report hearing hoofbeats. But get this, not on the ground, on the water.
Hoofbeats on water.
On the water.
Wow.
And then children report seeing a horse made of black smoke, carrying a headless rider across the Kosi River. That image is just, it's burned into my brain.
A horse made of smoke on floodwaters. It really amplifies that sense of the supernatural, that there's something here that doesn't follow the rules of the natural world.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if the environment itself plays a role in these kinds of stories, shaping them, making them even more powerful.
And then we get to a hugely significant moment in history. India's independence in 1947. And even on this night of immense change, the legend persists.
That's incredible.
A freedom fighter, hiding near the old cantonment, writes in his diary about an encounter with this Ongre's boot.
Ongre's boot.
It means foreign ghost.
Oh, I see.
Riding through, and this is where it gets really creepy, seemingly collecting skulls.
Oh, wow.
So, you have this link to the history of British colonial rule, the struggle for independence, and the Headless Horseman becomes this lingering symbol of that era, a manifestation of all those unresolved tensions and conflict.
Yeah, it makes you think about how historical trauma can actually weave its way into local folklore, how these things can become intertwined.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving into more recent times, the encounters get even more detailed, even more unsettling in a way. Like the 2009 account of this honeymooning couple camping near the temple. They're woken up in the middle of the night
What happened?
by the sound of a horse in distress, and what they see next is truly terrifying. They describe a skeletal horse, the uniform on the rider is just crawling with centipedes, and then there's the decomposing head with Vaughn's handlebar mustache.
That is just so creepy.
And the head winks at them.
It winks.
Winks. Before this spectral horse charges right through their tent, it leaves no physical trace but this horrible stench of rotting meat and gunpowder.
Oh, God, that would stay with you forever.
And the wife, she starts wearing iron bangles and refuses to talk about what happened. It just shows how deeply this encounter affected her. It really speaks to the power of these experiences to shape people's beliefs.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, what is it about these sensory details, the smell, the visual of the winking head? Why does it elevate it from just a story to something that feels, for those who claim to have seen it, like a shared experience?
Mhm.
And the iron bangles, that's also culturally significant, showing that local belief in protection charms to ward off evil spirits.
Right. It's like people are trying to find ways to understand and deal with the things they can't explain. So then we get to 2018, and there's this group of YouTubers who decide to use technology, cameras, to try and capture evidence of the Horseman. You'd think in this day and age we'd have definitive proof, right?
You'd think so.
But most of the footage they got was corrupted. But there's one clip that survives. It's short, but it's really disturbing in how unclear it is.
So what was in the clip?
Okay, so first, there's this really sudden drop in temperature, like frost starts forming on the camera lens.
Oh, that classic sign of paranormal activity.
And then this blur of red streaks past the camera.
The red cavalry code again.
Yep. But the freakiest part, as the camera's falling, it catches a single frame of this disembodied smile with a gold tooth glinting.
The gold tooth.
Yeah, that detail connects right back to Captain Vaughn. It's not something you can just dismiss as someone's imagination.
It's like with that one frame, it gives you just enough to hint at something, but it doesn't give you the full picture. It leaves you with this unsettling feeling.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to see how the local villagers have come up with their own ways to protect themselves from this spectral rider.
Like what?
They tie red threads around the temple trees.
Red threads.
The belief is that the horse will see them and think it's British uniforms and just pass by.
Oh, that's actually quite clever.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like they've incorporated the legend into their everyday lives.
It really shows how deeply ingrained this legend is in their culture. It's not just a story. It's part of how they understand and interact with their surroundings.
Exactly. And then they leave whiskey bottles at crossroads as a kind of offering.
To appease the horseman?
Yeah, maybe to quench his thirst for vengeance, something like that. It's like they're trying to make sense of the supernatural, give it a reason.
Yeah, it's a very human thing to do, right?
Right. Totally. And they never whistle at night. The fear is that it might sound like Vaughn's cavalry bugle and attract him. It's like certain sounds, certain objects from his life have taken on this really ominous meaning in the legend.
It shows how these long-held beliefs can impact even the smallest, most everyday actions. But then we have this really interesting discovery in 2021.
Oh, right.
A historian finds Captain Vaughn's lost journal, and the final entry in that journal gives us a totally different perspective on how he died.
Yeah, it really challenges the whole story we've been talking about. So in the journal, Vaughn doesn't describe a tiger attack at all.
What does he say happened?
He talks about an encounter with something he thinks came from the temple. something with human eyes and teeth like temple bells. A really strange and unsettling description.
So not your typical tiger.
Not at all.
Wow.
And he describes shooting at it, but the bullet just goes right through.
Oh, wow.
And then the creature whispers, "Run," in perfect English. In English. Before it attacks.
That's just chilling.
Right. And his last thought is that it wasn't a tiger, but justice.
That changes everything. It suggests that whatever killed him wasn't just a random animal, but a direct result of his actions. Like maybe it was the goddess Garjiya Devi's wrath that the priests had warned him about.
Exactly. It makes us question everything we thought we knew about this story.
It really does.
Yeah.
So we have to ask ourselves, is the Headless Horseman really just Vaughn's vengeful ghost? Or is it something much older and more connected to the temple itself?
Like a guardian of the temple, dispensing justice.
Right. That uncertainty is a big part of why this legend is so captivating and why it endures.
So what does all this mean for you, our listener? We've gone through these chilling historical accounts, the eerie modern encounters, and these really fascinating local customs that have developed around this spectral writer. And then Vaughn's journal comes along and throws a wrench in everything we thought we knew.
It's like we're left with more questions than answers.
Exactly. Is this just a classic ghost story born from a tragedy and embellished over time?
Or is there something more to it?
Something more ancient, more unsettling at the heart of it all. The stories, the sightings, the ghostly rider collecting skulls, the glimpse of a gold tooth in a disembodied smile, they all add to the mystery.
It makes you think about the power of belief, of stories, how they shape our understanding of the world, especially when those stories deal with loss, with justice, with the unknown.
And the Garjiya legend is a powerful reminder that some mysteries may always stay just out of reach, that we may never fully understand them.
And perhaps some warnings, some traditions, like not whistling in the jungle at night, are best heeded even if we don't fully know why.
Absolutely. So if you ever find yourself near Garjiya Temple as the sun sets and the jungle falls silent, think back to what we've talked about today and listen closely. You might just hear the sound of hoofbeats approaching through the night.